This is a great example of how the predict the question strategy is supposed to work when we have these kind of subtle things going on, these subtle grammar rules. We can see that these verbs and these choices are different tenses, and that's very, very important. But if we have gotten really good at predicting the question, we know that tense is secondary. Yeah, they do test tense on the SAT, absolutely. But the first thing you want to look for is verb agreement, right? So this is similar to our pronoun rules where we need to think about singulars and plurals. So some of these words are not either. So has relied is singular because singular verbs end in S. So has is singular. The plural version would be have relied. So relied itself, though, is not either. So it could be, you could go either way, right? So you could say he relied on the calculator for the math problem, or they relied on the calculator for the math problem, right? He, they, it doesn't change it. Singular, one person, multiple people. Relied is going to stay the same. And that's just because most of the singular plural stuff with verbs happens in the present tense. So the other tenses, it doesn't really come up. And so that's why C also is neither. It's not singular or plural. It's just kind of this, it's both maybe. D, though, is also singular because the word is ends in S, and that's singular. R, A-R-E, would be the plural version of that verb. And so what we need to do with agreement is we need to think, well, what is doing the action? What is the subject of the sentence? Because that needs to match. They want you to think that it is the National Museum of Brazil that is relying on the technique. It's not. It is the researchers. Let's do this here. The researchers has relied. Now, how do I know that? Well, because I know the agreement rule very well, I know that phrases like this have to be ignored. This is a prepositional phrase. And what that means is it's an extra clause, a little bit of extra information. There's no commas telling us that it's extra, but this little word from is the preposition that tells us we're getting a little extra information. And the reason that that's important is that we could delete it from the sentence and ignore it. And we might lose out on some important information for the ideas in the sentence, but grammatically speaking, we could delete this. And we should still have a complete sentence. And when we do, that brings our subject and our verb closer together. Then we can say, researchers has relied on this technique, and we can hear that that's bad because researchers is plural, and so we need a plural verb down here to match it. And so that means that A and D, I don't even need to care about whether they sound right or they're the right tense. They're wrong because they're singular, and we need a plural verb. So now we're just down to, well, is it the past tense or the future tense? Well, it was discovered. We're talking about the past. This is something that has happened in the past, so the past tense is better. B is the answer. And again, you might get this just from listening to the sentence and how it sounds. That could happen. However, knowing the SAT, there are always going to be 10 to 20% of questions on the test where they're deliberately trying to use the grammar rules to mess with your instincts, right? So the thing that sounds good won't be good. And so the grammar rules, if we can get in the habit of applying the rule and going through the process every time, then we won't have to worry about those few times where we get tricked. So if you're stuck somewhere on grammar, if you're having trouble with the writing section, you're hitting a ceiling, it's probably because your instincts can only take you so far, and you need to apply these rules much more rigorously to earn those last few points. So hopefully this was a nice refresher of the verb agreement thing. It is the most complicated rule on the test, in my opinion, so use Khan Academy, use my study guide, try to get some more practice with it. It will come up, and it is difficult.